very much.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay. So I thought I'd start by explaining why I'm talking about this subject this evening. So, yeah, I love football, as any right-thinking person does. I love watching the game, listening to it, talking about it, following it on the news. Every detail is not too much for me. But I also, consider myself a feminist. And for me, there's no real reason not to. It's a pretty straightforward thing. The best person for any job can be a man or a woman, and the fact that that is not the case is puzzling. And this was brought home to me in recent years by my two children here, and it worries and saddens me that they're going to be growing up in a world where opportunities are not the same for them, simply because one of them is a boy and one of them is a girl. And this is brought home into sharp contrast in the world of sport, where you can have brothers and sisters like here, like Ellie and Sunny Aluko, who Ellie plays for Chelsea, Sunny plays for Hull, and he earns many, many times what his sister does. But even Ellie is very lucky in herself to be able to play professionally, because very few women can. And whenever you get a bit of good news, unfortunately, it's always spoiled by idiots making stupid comments about how the football isn't popular. So I thought I'd start to think about that and look at it from a historical perspective. And this is 1881, one of the first football reports that's recorded. And even back then, this report, if you have the chance to read it, starts off talking much more about what the women who are playing look like and what they're wearing, and eventually gets to the score. So wind on a little bit. This is 1906 photo of a factory, an ordinary factory, which, as so many were, was converted into a munitions factory in World War I. It was set up by two men called Dick and Kerr, hence the name Dick Kerr's factory. And to try and build morale, the women in this factory did the only logical thing that you could do, and that's to start playing football. And they did so, and with great success. It was initially frowned on, but by 1917, they were so keen for people to be engaged and have things to do that the factory workers sanctioned an official match. And on Christmas Day in 1917, they played in front of a crowd of 10,000 people, and they won 4-0. They were incredibly successful in their own right. They won a phenomenal amount of their games, 91.5%. Which, just for comparison, is significantly better than Jose's Chelsea or Alex Ferguson's Man United. They weren't by any means the only team, but as you can see, they were by far the best. And for a few years, women's football was incredibly popular. They expanded, they went on tours, they went around the world, they represented England when they played against France, and in 1921, they had the record crowd of 53,000 people came to see them play France in Everton, at Goodison. So they were phenomenally popular. And then, of course, during that time, what happened was that they made enormous crowds. They were very popular. They actually, that record crowd was 10,000 more. It was in that record was at Deepdale Stadium where Preston North End play, and that crowd was actually 10,000 more than that Preston have ever achieved themselves. Of course, in that time, in 1918, the war finished, and of course, men came home. And social society started to go back to how it was before. Men went back to work, women went home. But imagine the opportunities there could have been, double headers, build on the support of women's football and men's football, bring it together. But of course, that is not what happened. And in 1921, in December that year, the FA met and they did this. Complaints have been made as to football being played by women. Council were compelled to express the strong opinion that the game is unsuitable. Complaints have been made as to conditions of which some matches are played, arranged and played, and the appropriation of receipts to other than charitable objects. The council are further of the opinion that an excessive proportion of the receipts are absorbed in expenses and an inadequate percentage devoted to charitable objects. For these reasons, the council requests that clubs belonging to the association prevent these matches from being played on their grounds. And that was it. For the next 50 years, no women played football on a football league ground. They were just completely banned. They tried to keep going, and you see here playing in venues like the Speedway Stadium, but that was it. That was the high watermark, and women's football went downhill from there. This was from the Olympics 2 years ago, which was the first time that crowd was broken in the final of the Olympics. Now there's renewed hope, perhaps, that one day things will improve, as we now see women's football growing with the Women's Super League, and in particular seeing BT Sport there getting football back on television, which is the new infrastructure, which is what is needed in the same way the stadium were before. And I'll just finish and leave you with this slide, because the whole point of this is that anytime someone tells you that women just don't want to do something or they're just not interested, if you look hard enough and far back enough, you'll find a man saying no. Thank you.
Good man.